Welcome, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are around the globe. We are live in Viada's Tiny House Village. Thank you for joining this class today. It really is a class for all of us as we listen to Spirit guide us about building your own tiny house. Can we do that? Yes, we can. We can build our own tiny house. And I'm bringing in my business partner, L.A., to help us understand some of the logistics of it. But first, let me welcome my tiny house community. All right, we've come to bring you the fire of building a tiny house. It's way past time because I keep hearing that there's an epidemic of depression and suicide in our country, not in our world, but especially in America and among young people, especially. So, we're going to bring you some information, some knowledge, and experience that can help anybody come out of depression and suicide thoughts because this is a great country. If you live in the United States of America, it really is a great country of opportunities. And my guest or co-host, I guess I should call him my co-host because LA and I are partnering to share our knowledge and experience about smaller housings and travel experience. So we're going to talk. Talk about a lot of things today, but this is only a part one because there is a lot to be covered when we talk about building your own tiny house. And I want to first of all suggest you buy my ebook. It's only $5, and it's called Building. I renamed it Building a Tiny House Village, and it's an ebook, and you can find it at my website, yourholisticlifecoach.com, and there's a tab for tiny house ebook coach.com. So if you go there and purchase the ebook for $5, only $5, you can afford it. You'll learn all about how I got started on this journey. I started on this journey. Okay. Somebody didn't get that. Soul Purpose Healing 304. Okay. You'll learn all about how I started on this tiny house journey in a tiny house on wheels. In fact, I'm going to be bringing up pictures of that journey for you to help you see that it's not impossible at all to take this journey. In fact, let me just bring that up for you while we're waiting for my co-host.
I'm here.
Okay, my co-host is here, and I'm going to just show you my start in the tiny house community. Okay, this was the house that I bought after my divorce. Tiny house, 8 by 20 square feet. And I lived in that house for 5 years before I was invited to live in a big, huge ashram, a yoga center in Altamont Springs. So I left my tiny house, and then I eventually sold it and started to renovate a shed. So we want to talk about uh, how where do you start? We're going to start with the American dream because I think it's important that we look at belief systems. If everybody's not ready for a tiny house, we admit that, okay? But things happen in your life that create more stress, which reminds us that this life is really short and your health can take a toll quickly when you have too much stress. So LA and I are experienced baby boomers. Let's say we're in the baby boomer area, and we've experienced the stress and the sadness and the marriages and the divorces, and you come out with priorities. With all that living in life, priorities take hold, and we realize life is short and we want to enjoy it as much as we can. But what about the American dream, LA? What is your thoughts and ideas about what is the American dream today? Let's say, what was the American dream in the past and what is it today?
Well, that's very subjective. If you go by what Theodore Roosevelt, President Roosevelt's American dream, it was to have a house. Of course, a little word, but it can mean different things to different people. But a house and a pot and a chicken to put in the pot.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was, and other people. If you watch the old TV shows, Ozzie and Harriet, Leave It to Beaver, even the Brady Bunch. It was a household where you can have a home, a house, and the family can survive off of one paycheck. War Cleaver, breadwinner. June was a homemaker. Lucy Ricardo, homemaker. Ricky Ricardo, nightclub, entertainer. Mike Brady with the Brady Bunch with 6 kids. They had a blended family, but his one paycheck paid for their house, 6 kids, a living maid, Alice, and Miss Brady was, a homemaker. So it different things to different people.
But those are okay. So what you're saying is we were influenced, especially, and we're talking mostly about Americans and people in the United States of America. We were influenced by Hollywood as far as the American dream, because what you just mentioned were all TV shows that we stood in front of the TV being programmed about and entertained with. And so many of us, whether black or white, we grew up looking at these Hollywood productions saying, oh, I want to have that house. Oh, I want to have that family. So we had other people's beliefs and perspectives put into our heads as this is the life, this is the American dream, right?
Right.
So now to moving forward a little bit, as Hollywood progressed in their movies and programming, we saw more than just the Beaver, Leave It to Beaver, and all those 50s, 60s shows. We saw bigger mansions with the 2-car, 3-car garage and a swimming pool. Now, I don't know if any of those TV shows had swimming pools, but I
No, none
think
of those had them. No, they like I
so.
say they were one paycheck frames. Now that model of the so-called American, all right, Theodore Roosevelt's American dream was like 30s and 40s. Okay, and that included those shows. But around the early 1960s, the American dream started to transform because of inflation. So now you needed two households. You needed two incomes for the household.
Okay, okay.
Now in 2025, you need more than the two paychecks.
Exactly. And I think the point we're making is people still have an idea of the American dream as a house with a car and maybe a swimming pool or not. Well, I had all of that for 10 years, so really about 10, more than 10 years. We had the big house, we had the swimming pool, the two-car garage, and I was fortunate enough to travel uh, uh, with a on a low budget, mainly because my husband worked for a major airline, and if you know, an employee gets to ride free if you can get a seat. So we traveled a lot and had the American dream of a house and the pool and the two cars. So today, people are so stressed trying to keep the American dream that they're not going to, when they finally retire, their bodies are so weak and sick from all the stress of keeping up with the Joneses that they're not going to be able to enjoy their retirement, and then having to pay the bills, the mortgage, the car insurance, the health insurance. We're offering some alternatives today to that stressful, non-productive life, right?
Well, and the American dream, depending on who you are, has changed. The American dream now could be a van. That's the home. That's home for some people now. A school bus that's been revamped, was customized to make it into a home. A Prius, a tiny house, a tent. The American dream has morphed into different things now.
Yes, yes.
And
It's
the idea of the American dream is affordable housing, but what price tag do you, I mean, what's the, there's no real clear definition on what is affordable.
right, right. Your what's affordable is having enough money at the end of the month to eat and do the things you really enjoy, the leisure activities. Okay, I think when it comes down to
All right,
finance,
well, now, see, that figure could be different from you, for you, than for me, than to many other people. So, I mean, do we go by the poverty line? I don't know what the poverty line in the United States is, but I looked it up before we conclude this stream. But what's your definition?
well, everyone's different, but I would say if you are stressed, if you're taking aspirin every night, coming home and eating a microwave dinner, and so tired you have to go to bed after work, and that's your routine 5 days a week, 9 to 5, waking up to a cup of black coffee, grabbing a McDonald's cheese sandwich, egg and cheese sandwich on the way, and then working in a job with fluorescent lights all day, and then coming home too tired, and you're fixing your kid. If you have children, putting microwave dinners in the oven, and then going to bed right away. That routine, if you don't have a break from it, is going to create health problems.
Yeah, yeah, it could, and it does.
So let us, if you have any comments or questions, please put them in the comment section of YouTube. And if you'd like to call in and ask a question or voice your opinion, you can call in, and I can give you my phone number to call in, because we're not on the On Air Everywhere anymore. And I'll be, tomorrow is my last day on the Female Solution. So I'll be offering you different options to call in and talk to us at the Viada's Tiny House Village. So building a tiny house. If you are of the mind to reduce your space, your living space, and have more money available, because it's a lot cheaper to have a tiny house, we want to offer you some suggestions on how to get started. And it starts in your mind first. That's why we're wanting to establish here, what is your belief system about the American dream? Do you want to travel more? Do you want to have more extra income? We're not here to tell you how to become a millionaire. because you will be rich in your lifestyle, your pleasure experience when you are not paying $2,000 or $3,000 a month for a mortgage or rent. Now, if you're making $200 million a year or a large amount of money every year, then you might be able to afford $2,000 or $3,000 in rent. But for those of you who are struggling, who are stressed about your mortgage and not having enough food, and especially those of you who have been depressed, this is an opportunity for you to create your own house. It's so rewarding. I can't tell you how rewarding it is. And I'm going to show you just a little bit of my journey um, over the past 10 years to build, actually create my own living space and actually put in a lot to build this space. So I want to first give you an idea of the shed that I found. Now, you have to go and look for a small shed first and foremost. That's it. First and foremost, find some land. We always talk about land. So, LA, tell us a little bit about the land search, searching for the right land or location.
Well, in order to be so-called legal, like you just mentioned, you need to find the right place where you can legally place the or place and or build uh, any structure, be it tiny, medium, large, whatever. Uh, the more populated the city or town, the more rules and regulations typically, the harder it is to get something that's considered tiny. And that's tiny would be, for the sake of this conversation, less than 400 square feet. Less than 400 square feet. So more than likely, in a place like New York City, which has five boroughs, you're not going to be able to get permission to build a tiny house or place a building that's less than 400 square feet on a lot, like the picture that you just showed.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that's first thing. So the best places are in any United States. You got over 109,000 communities to pick from. So the best places are rural areas. 97% of the United States is rural. So that's the best place to go look. Look for a rural area where the land is zoned agricultural.
Yes. Now, this house that we're showing you here is the one I'm currently in, but this house was not livable in the beginning. This house here, this is a shed. And this shed was presented to me when my son divorced and moved to a new house. This shed sits in the back, his backyard. And it was a shed that was totally empty. In fact, I'm going to show you what it looked like. Now, when we first saw this, we were like, what's this? So we looked at it and we said, oh, this is interesting. This is where the previous owner kept his his supplies for his landscape business. So I want to show you what this looked like on the inside before I began to renovate it. Okay. So this is exactly what the ceiling looked like. And this was the walls, all the walls. So this was presented as an already insulated shed. This shed had insulation throughout the walls. And this is what it looked like when when my son first moved here, and all this stuff was piled in there. The ceilings were not insulated. The ceilings were not covered. It was just an empty shed with wood framing and insulated walls. That was the best part about this shed. It was already insulated. But if you're going to start from scratch, either look for an opportunity like this one that came to me, where someone has an empty shed in their backyard. It can happen if you put out the intention that you're ready to reduce the size of your dwelling space, you can start with something like this that's all emptied out and full of stuff, and or you can find something that is in a rural area where you decide from scratch whether you want to build your own shed. Home Depot, LA, what are some of the places where people can find sheds that are already built with that are just a shell, and they can start building it from the inside out?
Well, as you just mentioned, you got Home Depot, Lowe's, those big box stores, Menards, um, flea markets. Um, so there are plenty of, Amazon. So there are plenty of places where you can buy a shed, which will basically give you a shell. Uh, and then, of course, you have to fill in the way you want it on the inside. But those are some, and that's what a lot of people are doing right now.
And what's the price range, you think?
That's a good question. I guess anywhere from either $500 beyond 12 or 15,000, depending on the square. I mean, how big of a shed that you want to purchase.
Right.
You can
And
also uh, build yours from scratch.
there are some amazing, especially, okay, I want to really advise everyone listening to start in YouTube. There are some amazing carpenters out there who are building everything from renovating vans. I saw this guy renovate a van. I couldn't believe what he. I think you shared something with me, LA, of this guy who renovated a van into like a, I don't know, it was like uh, just an amazing place to live in. And he put all the wood in the side, the insulation, everything. So start with YouTube, searching for carpenters building sheds or carpenters building tiny houses, and see what information you can get. There might be one in your area. That's if you're serious about downsizing, becoming a minimalist, then there is someone in your area waiting for you to contact them and get you going on this.
And if those who watch this video, if you're interested, because I don't know about you, Viola, but I'm willing to work with a person, boots on the ground, who's ever listening, I mean, watching this video or live stream, to come to your neck of the woods and we put on a hands on workshop on actually doing what we're talking about here today, building a tiny house.
Yes, coming together as a group or a committee or friends, and creating an atmosphere, some land where you start the building process.
Right.
That's what we're
So
talking about.
it can be in somebody's backyard, it can be in a parking lot. Just reach out and we'll give you the details.
So it needs to be, if you're not willing to travel to Florida, both of us live in Florida. If you're not willing to travel to Florida, uh, it could be done online or visually. But if you want to just stay in your area, then again, search on YouTube for people who are like minded, who want to start a committee, a group, a family to build small houses, to find sheds. You could even invest in a shed from a farmer's market. I went to a farmer's market near Cocoa Beach. They had the most beautiful sheds lined up on the edge of the parking lot. And I don't think any of these sheds were more than like 10,000, $5,000 or $10,000. And you could just visualize creating the most beautiful home for yourself because it was just an empty shell of a shed. And you start with that. But before you purchase it, of course, you got to find the land. And the land is usually going to be outside of a major city. You're usually not going to have, like in my situation, um, land sitting, in this case, my tiny house is right over here. My house is right over here, sitting in this backyard of my son's house. So I have just been blessed in so many ways. And that's why we're doing this video today, to share the knowledge and experience that we have had to build a house and then be able to travel. So we want you to be stress free. If you are stressed, if you're having health challenges, then the root of that health challenge is probably lifestyle, because most people today are stressed because of their job, because of relationships. So you want to be sure and join me on Friday mornings. I'm going to be moving from 8 to 9 a.m. After tomorrow, where I'm going to be continuing my show on health and well-being with Beata. After 35 years of experience in this area, I'm well trained to help you get back your health, take charge of your health, and to change your lifestyle when you're ready to a more holistic journey. A holistic journey meaning taking into account your choices, your emotions, your thoughts, and the relationships in your life. And I just wrote a book that is on Amazon, but it's on my website. If you go to my website, yourholisticlifecoach.com, you'll see information about my new book, From Fear to Faith in the Master Design, Moving Toward Enlightenment. Because all the choices I've made to be in a small house, that house is 320 square feet. I love it. I love it. I love it. I just traveled to Belize last month. February, early February. Went to Cuba a year ago, and I'm not in any major debt because of those journeys. So, if this is the type of stress-free lifestyle that you desire, it can be done. And my ebook is available. Go to my website for my ebook on building a tiny house village, and that's where you can start. $5, invest $5. And what is the reason? What are your reasons for wanting to
Sure.
build a tiny house? La, what do you think some of the major reasons are that people are coming out of the McMansions that they've been in, and looking for a smaller place or less space, less money, looking to invest less money in the maintenance? We don't talk, we haven't even talked about the maintenance of big houses versus a smaller house. It's a big difference.
Well, they're tired of going broke, being broke. And as you mentioned, maintenance can end up costing more than the price of the house, the original purchase price. So, I mean, if you think about it, if you had to borrow money, like a 30-year loan mortgage, I bet that's something that broke people do. It, you know, do you
What?
have do you have to take out a loan when you go to the fast food place or buy a shirt or something like that? So, um, yeah, but a lot of people just with this, the cost of living globally through inflation is getting sky high. Matter of fact, whatever you make in a month, no, a year, you need to figure out how to earn that in a month. Because in your large, like Seattle, Washington, a starter home can cost you practically $1 million. Or
Yep.
any or your larger coastal cities of California. Um, but now, once again, in the United States, 97% of the United States is rural. So there's plenty of places where you're going to have to, as you mentioned earlier, you're going to have to look outside of the major uh, population hubs.
Metropolitan areas like
Right.
Chicago, New York.
Right. And pick up and be willing to pick up, learn a new skill. Like if we go back, we need to start living like our, let's say, great grandparents. My great grandparents built their house.
Yes,
No more.
my
All right.
grandparents built their house.
Right. So we're going to have to start. We're going to have to start looking back what they did. They grew their food.
Yes.
You know.
And
So
one of
we,
the things I'm learning about growing food in this area, there's so much sand in this yard that I am going to have to bring in some cow manure or tree trimmings or something to build up and the quality of the dirt in this yard. I have tried to grow food for the last 2 or 3 years, and I had a watermelon show up, a small melon, and then it dies. And that's pretty my story. So I want to give just my own experience. Make sure you check the quality of your soil before you even think about growing food. That's the advice we're being given, especially now, to grow your own food. The food is crappy these days. It's not even quality nutrition. So look at the soil wherever you're planning to grow your food before you start planting those seeds, and then build up that soil with worms, with cow manure, with tree. There was a great video about the garden of how to create the Garden of Eden, and this guy showed that getting tree trimmings, you're getting shredded tree trunk bark. The bark was the best way to enrich your soil. And another way is burnt or charcoal from the trees and the shredded bark trunks of a tree. So do your research first. That's what we're here first and foremost. Building a tiny house, part one, is about doing your research. Where do you want to locate? Wherever you are, find a location where you can put a tiny a shed and hook it up to electricity or water, and then start looking at farmers markets, Home Depot. Look for that shell of a house that you are going to be able to create something amazing. I created something amazing for this house that I'm living in now. I had to hire a plumber. Well, actually, I hired a contractor, and he and I went into this empty shell, and we planned out everything in this empty shell, where I wanted the bathroom, where I wanted, let me just show you again, where I wanted the bed to be placed. Let's see, where I wanted the bed to be placed. And we mapped it all out, made a drawing, and then he brought in, and this is again, I had to take this. I actually did this all myself. I took this shelving out with a hammer. I just took a hammer to all this stuff on the wall. I had to tear all this stuff down, and thankfully, this shed had 4 windows in it. I had to insulate this ceiling. I actually slept in this shed before this was completed, and it was pretty cold in there, but I was just determined. But I found a green company that put up an inexpensive insulation or ceiling for me, so that's all covered. And then most of this wall was I just painted. I had to do about 3 coats of paint on this wall. All these shelvings that were nailed in there had to come out. I took a hammer to that. This shelf, I had to get that. I had took a hammer to that, pulled that down. This wall right here, I had to take a hammer to that. There was a sink behind there. And so it was work for me, but I took my time. I didn't have to rush. And so that's where you want to be able to find something where you can take your time and be a creator. So we've got a comment from a listener. Move around with Deborah. She's the Saturday host for the Female Solution. And she says, my great grandparents built their first house 1936. Wow. Which was a small house. He then built the big house on the same property as the family grew. Yes, 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 yes. That is the tradition of most African American families. Their great great grandparents or grandpa. My grandfather built his own house. So yeah, we have to, and thank you, Deborah. I think we need to be teaching our children these, first of all, telling them these stories, and then encouraging them to start building dog houses. How about you start teaching your children and grandchildren to build a dog house or a doll, any type of house, and use YouTube. Again, YouTube is to me the best university out there because there's nothing you can't learn on YouTube. So, LA, you have any other thoughts on this part one of building a tiny house? Let's just go over the basics for part one of this building. How do you start? You have to first of all find the land. Where are you going to locate outside of a major city, right?
Yeah, but before we go to that, let's talk about, let's get something very fundamental. Like you said, anybody can learn how to build a house. And here's the first lesson I would say is, and that's everybody who's watches this video who's on live stream. There are six fundamental parts to any building. There's the front, there's the back, there's the two sides, there's the roof, and there's the floor or foundation. That's six sides. So no matter where you are right now, there's six fundamental sides. The pyramids in Egypt have the same, they have six sides. The only difference is the design. That's it. All right. So if you start off something simple, like a like you just mentioned, a doghouse or even smaller, okay, that's you're learning your fundamentals, and then you just step it up to the size that you would like and the design that you would like. But it's start off something fundamental. Every building has just six sides. Where you're at right now, six sides. There's a front, there's a back, there's two sides, top, bottom. Where I'm at, same thing. Well, Deborah, who's just watched, same thing. Anybody who watches this stream, six sides, anywhere you go on the planet.
And that was such basic knowledge for our ancestors. Even for okay, if you look at the Native American teepee, I was on in Montana on the reservation with the Crow Nation, and I actually watched someone build a teepee. It was amazing because they have to use a stitch to create the sides. Now, in that case, there's only a one side. It's a circular teepee.
That's a portable house.
Right, right. Like a tiny house on wheels, only very simple.
No, they can pack those up.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
can pack those up. Yeah.
So if we were looking at the different standards, the different styles of housing, we're not going to the teepee, but people lived in teepees. But like you said, six sides. We moved from the circular portable housing unit
Mm.
to six
And a
sided.
TP is basically a tent. It's a
Yeah,
glorified tent. And if you go to Mongolia, about 30 to 40%, now this is in 2025 right now, of the population of Mongolia live in what's called yurts. And
yeah,
those are basically tents.
right.
And they've lived that way for thousands of years.
Yeah, yeah. So when again, we started, if you missed the beginning of the show, we started out talking about the American dream. And we've all been programmed, brainwashed, and taught that we need a big house with a garage and a swimming pool. And that's the American dream. And it's turning into a nightmare for many people because I believe one of the problems is people don't know how to maintain these mansions that they're desiring to have. That's going to be the older the house, the more maintenance. And if you don't invest the money to maintain that big house that you've always wanted, that American dream, the 4 or 5 bedroom, whatever, with the garage, it's going to start falling apart. So think about that as well. If you want that big house and all the trimmings, you're going to have to start the money that you're making in your older years, you're going to have to pay someone or do it yourself to maintain the beauty of and the strength of that house. Otherwise, gentrification takes place in most neighborhoods, not because of racism, but because the houses are falling apart and people see communities with potential in the air, as far as location, where the houses have deteriorated, and all the what's needed is maintenance and buildup of those houses to create a new community and a more expensive community. We were in my family and I were in Sanford, Florida. That's Trayvon Martin community where Trayvon Martin was killed. Wow, wow, wow. The houses and those many of the neighborhoods are so beautiful. They have been renovated and built up, and they're like magazine houses. As we were walking back to the parking lot, the windows were open, and I'm looking like, boy, they really have set these houses up to really shine. And it's because they've been renovated, because Sanford is an older neighborhood. There's a lot of history in Sanford, and the
Ooh.
houses don't tell the story of the history right now because they've been renovated and they look almost brand new. But all they did was put some fresh wood and built up some new doors and the porches. It was a porch fest of music. Most of the houses in Sanford have porches, which I just admired the uniqueness of that neighborhood, where you don't see a neighborhood that all of them have porches. But the uniqueness of it is also that they're renovating, building up, repairing, and the gentrification probably took place maybe 10 years ago, because again, it was an older neighborhood. So think about the American dream includes major maintenance costs for that how 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom house with a pool and 2 car garage. Now, when I divorced and we sold our house, we had I mean we I cleaned, I kept my house clean. But after, let's see, we were in that house from 1989 to 2014. So we were in that house over 20 years. And when they did the house inspection, there were a lot of things that needed repair in the attic area and wiring here and there that we weren't even aware of. But when they do a house inspection, when you're selling your house, you have costs that show up that need to be taken care of in order for you to sell that house. Lucky for us, the person who bought our house owned a chain of hotels in Florida, millionaire. And he decided to pay for all the expenses to repair the house. But we went down a little bit on our price, but all the expenses came to over $3,000 to sell that house with to meet the standards of the inspection. So think about your American dream. To own a big house is going to cost you for the rest of the house, the life of that house. Doesn't matter. And thank goodness in Florida, they're talking about eliminating property taxes. That would be a huge savings, a huge benefit to every Floridian who owns a house. But if you're not in Florida, you don't have a great governor like we have, then you're going to be paying property taxes that are more than likely going to keep going up and up and up. So maybe you better seek some relief from property taxes in your state before you think about holding on to the American dream, the big house, and all that. So we're here to just encourage you to start looking at changing your lifestyle, especially if you have health problems. Your health problems are only going to get worse if you own a big house and you have limited income, because the house maintenance costs are going to go up, not down. The longer you keep a house, the more maintenance it's going to take, whether it's painting or repairing old doors and windows, damage from weather. Think about building a smaller shed in a strength with strong materials where at least the maintenance costs are not going to be that great. I remember in my tiny house on wheels, there was an area right in front of the door that was getting moisture from under the door, and the floor began to get really soft in that area. And I thought, oh, something's happening here. So thank goodness I had a guy in the neighborhood who was a carpenter. And I said, there's something going on right here on this floor in my tiny house. And I was like, I don't know how much I can afford, but and so he ended up taking up the flooring, had to replace the wood underneath, and I think it cost me about $200. No problem. And then on the outside of my tiny house, there were wood panels all around the house. And let me see if I can bring that up. Wood panels all around the house. And let's see. No, and the panels started to decay or get, no, the panels were getting mildew around. Okay, here we go. I had part metal on that house, but let's see, the house that this house right here, it had green wood panels on both sides, and the wood started to, after 5 years, the wood was getting mushrooms, growing mildew, you name it. The weather had worn out the outside of that house. Now that's only 160 square feet. And to replace that would have probably cost, I'm guessing $400 or $500 to replace all the wood on both sides, and even to put metal like the rest of the, because this part of the house had metal on it, but there was wood that was decaying on this part. So we're just saying that whatever the size of your house, you're going to have to maintain it to keep the value up and to even live in the house. So consider building your own house in this day and age so you can do what? Move Around with Deborah is our go-to travel agent. So check out Move Around with Deborah, who had a comment here about her own great grandparent. She can help you travel. That's the benefit, the great benefit of building your own tiny house, is that you get to go to Deborah for her to find you the best place to travel to, and she'll help you travel at the lowest cost. She'll find the best deals for you, and you won't have to search anywhere else. That's why a travel agent is a good person to have in your social capital system, where you have people who can help you do things for less money. Thank you, Deborah, for your comment and for showing up. And go to her. She has a Facebook page. And I don't, Deborah, if you want to put in your website, if you have a website, put that in, and we'll share that as well. And I'm glad she showed up, because that's the major reason I love being in my small 320 square foot house, because I get to travel. And social capital, we haven't even talked about social capital, but let's just mention LA social capital, the benefits. What is social capital, and what are the benefits of having social capital?
No, I'll give an example. Let's say you wanted to, you did it with the tiny house you're in now. Let's say you wanted to buy a house, or you wanted to buy a house, and the house that you want to purchase costs $100,000, um, or even $25,000. Let's say $25,000, but you don't have $25,000. So, what do most people do? They go to the bank, or they go to the government, FHA, VA, whatever, to borrow money or get a government insured loan, and you can pay it back over 30 years. Now, those people typically do not have the social capital, because social capital example would be is like the Amish and the Mennonite do, is I can go to, look, I'm building a house. Can you help me out? Can you help put in wiring, the plumbing, uh, or you can make it a social event like the Amish do, and you might be able to bring over like you make good gourmet popcorn. So you bring over the popcorn and drinks or whatever, and then we have a social event, and we build that $25,000 house or $100,000 house debt free. So social capital is the people that you have a good social relationship with that can help you build your house, or it doesn't have to be building. It can be for anything.
Now, so in that example, you have connections to people who can help you lower the cost of doing whatever it is you want to do. Now, I like to think of social capital as having relationships with millionaires. I love this idea because this is how I've been traveling and I don't have to pay any money to stay wherever I stay. I have so many people, I have people in my life who, when I travel, they invite me to stay in their home. This is good social capital. That's why having healthy relationships is important, because when you need to do whatever your desire is, whatever you're to make your life easier, to make your life better, social capital helps you do it at less cost with less stress. Everywhere I travel, I usually find cheap housing because of social capital, or I find housing where I don't have to pay anything at all because I've developed healthy relationships. So make that part of your tiny house building plan, is to develop serious, healthy relationships where people can have resources that can help you do whatever you need to do at a lower cost. Now, this is a Mennonite home I'm showing you here. And these are a lot of these houses are in Belize, where I just traveled to. In fact, I'm going to be uploading that video later today. And they have these these houses on large bricks, a large, not large bricks, but large lumber.
Stilts.
They have them on large stilts, and you don't have to worry about flooding, because in Belize, especially, the flooding beams. I want to call these beams. You can call them stilts, but they're really strong. Of course, they're going to have to be strong and in a solid foundation to stand on for the house to sit on. But these are a lot of these houses are being built in Belize, in the Central America, to avoid the flooding and to provide inexpensive housing in an area where the cost of living standards are lower, in the South American, Caribbean, not South American, Central America, Caribbean area. So I love the idea of these houses being simple, and yet sturdy, and able to keep you from any threat of flooding. And even in Florida, we're starting to see, especially in the Tampa area, a lot of these houses being built because of all the flood damage that they experienced during the hurricanes. So these are things. Any questions or comments? Put them in the chat. And I think that's all we have for you today. We wanted to make this short because it's only part one. Part two will be more about the interior, how you build up the interior, what type of materials you need to get the interior to your liking and to your satisfaction, and how you can save money on the interior of your new house. We just talked about mostly getting the shed, the shell, the location, the land, and then how do you hook up the plumbing and the sewage system and all that. We'll talk about that in our part two, which will be next week. But if you have any questions or suggestions, please put it in the chat, and we will be back next week with part two. Tomorrow, please join me on health and well-being with Viata. I'm going to go deep into colonoscopies. You know, that uncomfortable medical procedure that the doctors suggest to you when you get, I think it's over 45. They recommend a colonoscopy. We got to talk about that tomorrow. because there's pros and cons, and I'm going to tell you how to be your own colonoscopy. It's really not that difficult, but we discipline is part of the equation. So join me tomorrow morning at 8, right here on YouTube, Viada's Tiny House Village, on Facebook, and on onaireverywhere.com with the female solution. So please share this, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll send you out, you'll get notifications whenever I upload a new video from my travels and from new information that LA's and I are bringing to help you live a simpler, stress-free life that will give you the money and the income to do whatever makes you happy. That's what life should be about. Whatever makes you happy. Let's downsize and create a lifestyle that is fabulous without all the maintenance costs and the things that go with a bigger house. So, LA, any final words before we go?
No, that's enough probably for part one. We'll be back with part two next week.
All right. Thank you, LA, for joining me. And we're going to say goodbye to our global tiny house community.